Welcome to the Gravity Well, where we break down heavy ideas into small buckets anyone can handle. Our mission is simple: to set aside our differences and collaborate with others through conversation and processes. Together, we can face our dilemmas and make our world a better place for all.
In the spirit of truth, I acknowledge we are settlers on stolen Blackfoot Treaty 7 territory and Métis Districts 5 and 6 lands. We take reconciliation by seeking the wisdom of elders and individuals who aim to restore water, air, land, life, and community. A healthy living relationship with the earth and each other is our guide. Welcome to the stage. Alex, I think you're leading us off today. Why don't you tell us what we're talking about?
My name's Alex. A little bit of background. It's mostly arts and construction, a little bit of volunteer private security. Jack of all trades, master of none, but autodidactic in nature because I just love to continue to learn, and that's my lifelong pursuit. Perpetual education, as it were. Jenny and I met when she was door knocking, when she was running for office back last May in 23, and we had a really good conversation, and we chose to stay in contact and take some education at Delft University of the Netherlands in analytics specifically. So this is a process that we kind of use to interpret information. And ever since, we've been just working alongside each other, trying to figure out a way to apply these analytics to solving problems. The topic specific is the video that was sent to all of you with regards to the economics of happiness and environmental sustainability. So Jenny and I both look forward to any of the contributions or interpretations that you have on that video, because it is a roundtable. We would also like people to just limit their comments to 3 minutes so that everyone else has a chance to speak. Talking stick method. And then we'll do wrap-ups and roundups and everything like that. Everyone's takeaways, not only from the video, but the conversations and where people can find you, who you are. If you want them to find you, you don't have to give that information. But if you'd like to get a little bit of promotion or establish some contacts with any of the listeners, that would be much appreciated. So with that, we will continue on, and I'll pass it off to Jenny.
Some of you might know these names by faces, I should say, but Kristy and Janet joined us in round 1 of the Gravity Well when we talked about choosing our own crisis. So that episode was dedicated to defining what we see as the crisis that we're facing in the world. So out of that conversation came some great takeaways. So one was that we're in a crisis of relationship, not only with each other, but with the earth. We put humans above the environment. We don't think about the things that just come to us through our system, through our economic system. There's a lack of fairness in what we see in the world. There's an absence of rule of law. That came from Mark Doran. No trust in the government or information system. That was Alex's contribution to that conversation. Our leaders aren't taking responsibility. We don't feel that we're being the problem, or the people that care about the problem are really being represented by our leaders. And then lastly, this lack of good faith that goes hand in hand with trust. So those are kind of the key takeaways of that discussion. And this is a follow-up to that, because one of the pieces in that is Kristy brought forward the donut model. It's similar to what this video offered us, is this idea of a vision of the future in terms of the economy. So I'm really grateful for that. And then we have a totally different perspective here. My good neighbor introduced me to her sister, Lori. So Lori, I'll let you introduce yourself properly, but Lori is a financial psychologist. Lori has a company called A Moneymaker Mindset. Her goal is to take the fear and mystery out of finances and money. Allow yourself to discover and understand your memories and biases to gain insight into the financial choices that you make. So really interesting to have your perspective, Lori. I sent Lori the video. Thank you, Kristy. I believe it was you that brought this video forward for us. And then Lori asked to meet. And so I watched the video and I thought, oh, wow, that's quite a information sharing session potentially for you. So I really appreciate you participating despite that, sort of big eye-opening offer that we had. So anyway, I can see Lori on my screen next. So Lori, if you wouldn't mind just unmuting and introducing yourself. Thank you.
Hi, thanks, Jenny. Yeah, I think my comment was it was a little bit heavy, but I got through it, so that was good. A little bit about myself. My name is Lori Curtis. I currently live in Calgary, but I'm born, raised, and spent most of my life up in the Peace region of Northern Alberta. So I have a bit of a unique and deep understanding of the challenges, but the opportunities of living in the North are. I started this business, a moneymaker mindset, because I really want to help people understand why they make the decisions they make with money and how we can cultivate habits to make better choices, to be more confident about our finances. And that's after 20 years of being a certified financial planner with one of the banks. So this was a leap of faith to leave my job and try this completely new idea. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. Kristy, you're next on my screen, please.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I've just been a long-time activist, I suppose. I was around for Occupy and Idle No More. My Facebook site still mentions the Wet'suwet'en people and all the actions that we had there before COVID happened. And so I'm really interested in the next big movement, and I think it could be questioning the economy, or I would like it to be, because it's such a basic thing. Our whole society is built around quarterly profits. That's our only goal. We could have a system that had some goals around it, like to stay within the planetary boundaries and to support everybody as much as possible. Everybody has enough to live. And I think we could do that with the resources we have. It's just a matter of sharing. One thing I will say about this video, it's 13 years old or so. What excites me about the donut economics is really she released it. Kate Raworth is an economist from the UK, and she released a book called Donut Economics just before COVID. So it's fresh, it's new, it's a new idea, and I feel like people could really rally behind this new model and demand from our leaders that they acknowledge that there are limits that we want to live within. I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. It's a bit disheartening that it's 13 years since, but I think there is a lot of knowledge in that. We know what the problem is. We've answered all the 5 W's, and now we're into the how. So I think it's a really good time to bring this video back to the surface and have this discussion. So thank you so much for bringing that forward. Janet, please introduce yourself for us.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to gather with the 4 of you and your broader audience with Gravity Well. I think this is a fantastic forum that you're working so hard to make available to everyone through the YouTube platform. I am so grateful for the relationship that I'm building with you, Jenny, and now you as well, Alex. Very good to interact with you again, Kristy, and meet you, Lori. I am in recovery, basically. I studied at Olds College, soil and water conservation reclamation. From there, thinking I would work in oil and gas reclamation field. After the 2-year stint there, I needed more experience. I traveled to Lethbridge shortly after, completed a degree in environmental science. I like to say that I begged my way in, as I'm not extremely academic. I'm a little bit maybe too social, but however, I was gained entry to the environmental science program at the same time that they were launching their agricultural program. And I definitely benefited from the classes there. And as part of the co-op program at U of L, I had fantastic opportunity working at the Ag Canada Research Centre in their GIS remote sensing lab. Ground truthing down at one for identifying rangeland species so that they help calibrate the imagery for the project that the researcher, Dr. Smith, was working on. I also worked for Alberta Pool with its last stand under that name before being dissolved, transitioned to Viterra. As a junior agronomist, I walked fields in southern Alberta. Primarily, I grew up in Calgary. My parents are from rural communities. My dad is from Penhold, Innisfail. We still have family farming there. My mom is from rural Saskatchewan. Her line was, all good Albertans are from Saskatchewan. I stayed and loved the people and the land of Conquest, Saskatchewan. Every year I would visit. Absolutely, rural roots. Was quickly introduced to the species that were introduced in the dirty 30s. The Caragana. Conquest is famous for their shelter belts that some researchers, agricultural scientists came to see, and their importance for reducing erosion on the prairies prior to zero-till farming. So these concepts I was introduced to as a kid and didn't recognize their value. I also have worked with all of the major chemical companies out there as a crop protection specialist, which is sort of code for a pesticide advisor. And I have, I think, shared with you, Jenny, that I feel very solemn about my impact that I've had. Although I would talk about economic thresholds with growers, I did recommend the use and rates of insecticides for farmers and herbicides to maintain their economic viability of their crops. Vanda Shiva was introduced to me with the company I worked for, Syngenta, as a climate activist that I should not give any stock to. So seeing this film again through different eyes at a different time in my life, yeah, I feel a sense of shame, but I also recognize that I can, like Alex, I'm a Jill of all trades, master of none. I can take this accumulative experience and work towards a more ethical, sustainable future in agriculture, as well as social and local sustainable initiatives. And right now I'm working part-time with Alberta Talks, and this is sort of on my redemption tour.
I feel like it's almost like an AA meeting. You know, my name is Jenny. It's been 2 years since I have broken free from my contributions to this world that I'm not proud of. I know, Lori, I gave you some of my background, but I worked in the oil and gas industry. So yeah, I have a lot of, Janet and I both feel a lot of shame, yeah, in what we contributed to. However, I think I can speak for both of us in saying we didn't fully appreciate what we were doing. You know, I think there is a big part of the compartmentalization that once, you know, we broke free of that, I think that's where now we can be a little bit kind to ourselves, because I know we wouldn't contribute to what we wouldn't want to. Okay, so
if I may just add one thing,
yeah,
Jenny,
please.
if like no experience is a bad experience, and no experience or education is a bad education, as long as you learn something from it, right? And working in pesticides and working in land acquisition and like working in these chemical industries, for instance, well, I'm sure you learned a lot about where maybe like your heart was not in what you're originally setting out to do. So the first part of the redemption tour is to understand that you've acquired a lot of knowledge, and as a result, that's established a foundation that you can build upon, right? And you can refine those skills that you've earned rightfully, right? And turn those experiences forward in another direction that's actually going to benefit people a lot more, and it'll help you sleep at night, you know. Like the first step in that, if it's an AA meeting when it comes to environment and work experience, is to forgive yourself, and then you move forward from there.
Thank you, Alex. I was going to add too, people often forget that the phrase of a jack of all trades and a master of none is still greater than a master of one. So I think there is that's a big miss in that analogy. I wanted to make sure you think about, because being somebody who cares about that connection between others makes us stronger, right? And like Alex said, we're putting to good use. So I'll stop there. Let's get into this video. So I'm going to go ahead and tee us off. I'm just going to offer some of the initial thoughts I had from the video. So more, I'm going to talk about the information. And then the next round, we'll talk about our takeaways more in like the context of each of us as well. And then we'll do a little sign off, as Alex said. So for me, some of the things that I heard in the video. So again, the video is called The Economics of Happiness. And so it talks about globalization that has dismantled self-reliant economies and enslaved people. So we have a very disproportionate distribution of wealth and services that has been a result of this globalization effort. There's competition that's increasing and diversity is decreasing. So we're not really allowing for this culture, this part that really made us special and what is meaningful to who we are and where we live, but that's being stripped away from us. People are lonely because of this, and there's a lack of identity. And the motivation is this move towards an American way of living. And unfortunately, that is using 5 times the Earth's resources. So it's not something that's possible. And so it's something that we have to change dramatically, as you said, Kristy. It's criminalizing local small producers, and it's deregulating giant businesses. So we're seeing that with agriculture. Just last week, Janet, you'd love this conversation we had last week with Shannon Stunden-Boer of Niche Canada talking about this. Big machinery. In fact, it was Bruce that added this, that the big machinery requires, wetlands to be removed and things like that. So it's all this sort of additional problems that come from this massive system, and it's hurting landowners. I've seen it with, listening to landowners who can't sell their property because they have wells on it. And the wells are contaminated and the companies aren't dealing with it. That's a crisis. That there are people that have gravel pits right beside them and the water's being taken for fracking, and they're seeing pollution in their wells, and I've had them say, like, this has ruined my retirement. And so all of that stuff is happening to us, and yet we're still committing to this system of things that don't really serve us. So those are and then lastly, that, people are taking their lives. Like, this is how serious this is. It's not just in farming is one of the things that they really talked about. There's a worldwide farming crisis, and I'm not seeing the leadership here locally to give supports to farmers, like we talked about last week with Shannon Stunden-Boer, that the PFRA has been dismantled. And as you said, Kristy, there's an effort to try and get it back so that people have the knowledge. That's the other thing that Bruce said, and it's been prevalent, is we don't really know. Like Janet, like you said, you learn this stuff as a kid and you didn't really realize how important it was, or most people didn't learn it and they've been handed down the system that they don't really understand why. And so I think there is a big opportunity in terms of giving people support and bringing back a sense of community. So I'm going to stop there. Does anybody want to jump first, or should I select someone? We're going popcorn style here, so feel free to unmic and I'll bring you up. Kristy, do you mind going first?
No, I don't mind going first. What I am very focused on is what the UN says, that there's just not a lot of time left to change course a bit. And that's why I'm so focused on an actual movement, where is, like, after Fridays for Future, after COVID, there's lots of protests happening there. And I'm very sad for what's going on there. And I totally support, fighting back against genocide. But I just feel like the number of people who will be impacted by irreversible climate change is huge. And so we need to also keep our eye on the prize, which is getting our leaders to publicly have to address that this is actually happening. Like, we're still have our heads in the sand. Denial is a natural human reaction. Even some good friends that I've tried to convince about the donut, how I'm not getting through to them. There's some denial that really tipping points could happen, and the time is now. So I just think we should be bold and brave and willing to look foolish even, and just somehow make a movement happen, because we don't have a lot of time. There's a new movie coming out, Outgrow the System, and it's got Kate Raworth talking donut economics. And I'm excited to potentially do a screening of that, because that 3-minute video is just so hopeful. Like, it's very optimistic, and I feel like we could get people excited and wanting to come out to our rallies if it's a fun time. We could use music. There's so much amazing music that inspires and is really thoughtful. So all of that. I did watch a bit of this video that's longer and a little bit more heavy. Yeah. So I'm more interested in talking about what's possible. I'll let others speak now.
I'll just do a little reflection before handing back. I think that I agree with you, Kristy. It's up to us. I read Erin Brockovich's book over Christmas, and she says Superman is not coming. It is up to us, right? And so you're right. We have to define it. And so what I'm hoping to do is start talking about sub-regional planning. It's all rooted in honoring the like our subregions and getting our economy centered around local decision making in those areas. My focus in trying to honor, like you're saying, this shift is I think we need to present, like you said, a different way. We got to do it collectively. Obviously, I don't have all the answers. We gather that from the masses. But yeah, we just got to start telling them what it looks like, because otherwise, you're right. I'm not seeing the leadership coming otherwise. And quite frankly, as somebody who is a geophysicist and was in the industry for 22 years, it is complicated, right? Like, it is not, the solutions are simple. We need to restore our environment and we need to restore community. But it isn't easy to make those decisions. They're dilemmas, right? So, but it's going to take us basically saying, we want this area. It's the priority. Now you got to come help us out and get it started. So that's my logic with your thoughts. Anyway, Janet, do you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you. What struck me is how I had truly believed that the Green Revolution and industrial agriculture was required to feed the world. We are disconnected as an urbanite from the natural processes, the natural world. I was struck that they don't have pollution in the community. The Ladakas culture, they didn't really have money in the sense that they weren't using currency, but absolutely they didn't have unemployment or poverty. And not until industrialization was knocking at their door and multinational corporations did these individuals consider themselves poor. I'm concerned that at this day and age that there are so many international agreements, whether we're looking at NAFTA, the agreements that Canada has with other countries, we will be hard pressed to build on the important idea that we have more closed loop systems, value added products are created locally so that we can sustain economies or create jobs and the commodities we need to eat and live here in Calgary, Alberta. And then in particular with this Alberta government intent on propping up a sunsetting industry that is oil and gas, putting up roadblocks to everybody, but as well, like really creating divisions between people. I am hopeful that our First Nations will be given more opportunity to manage and protect lands. However, I'm concerned that profits and governments incentivizing development and non-renewable resource extraction ignores the take, make, waste economies that are killing the planet. I'm trying not to be pessimistic, but I see that there's a lot of work, and I do find it so overwhelming, depending on your community, what the dialogue is there, your faith, what that dialogue is there. Even in charity, we're often told that, well, hey, oil and gas is looking after communities. They're helping kids in sport and recreate and food programs. In the case of the Australian Mining Company, the misinformation is really propagated here in Alberta from the government. So these things are really concerning to me.
Yeah, I absolutely hear you. The lack of acknowledgement, as Kristy also said, it's like we're not even really talking about the elephant in the room. That part is really frustrating. And then, like you said, we're still going not only in the wrong direction, but using even more resources, which is really alarming from someone who's aware. I was in a discussion this week. It was the author of the net zero. It's net zero isn't the problem. I'll find it. The resources that could be used to restore are being held up in this development. So we're stifling our opportunity to fix the course by not using those resources right now when it's critical. As Kristy said, we've only got such little runway here. It's just so important to turn it around. So I think that's, to me, it's we've had the opportunity. So Janet and I have been taking a course recently and learning about organizing the masses. And so one of the things they've actually in a secondary course, similar theme, is talking about the pillars of society. So I think the opportunity that I see for us to start getting this movement happening, Kristy, and I agree with you, we got to get this going, is to rattle the cage, if you will. That's the term I'd like to use, is so that, you know, we don't stop trying to talk to this group that isn't listening, who's trying to hold the status quo. And instead, like you said, Janet, go to the faith groups. Let's get some allies in these faith groups. And this is all related. Let's make sure that we're amplifying those voices in those areas locally, right? So again, going back to this sense of regionalism. Anyway, Alex, can you please offer your thoughts as well?
There's a lot to go on with everything that you guys said. On the war issue, I did some deep diving because I wanted to find out the carbon footprint of the 7 major wars that we're fighting right now, right? And it's 5.3%. So if war itself were a country, it would be contributing 5.3% to the global carbon footprint. So maybe we should consider the trillions of dollars that we're spending on those campaigns could be reallocated to different infrastructure projects. Soldiers follow orders. We can just give them different orders. Let's start building houses. Let's start, bringing the essence of the goals of the original PFRA back, but with the new information and understanding of the environment that we have now, right? Because sometimes good ideas are only good with the information that you have available at the time. But in the information age, when we have so much more understanding of our biosphere, both the relationships between flora and fauna, I think there's a great opportunity actually to reallocate some of those budgets that are dedicated to destroying people for the sake of quick resource, rather than kind of building other people up, other cultures up. Senator Lindsey Graham said yesterday, the quiet part out loud, right? He said, we need to back up Ukraine because we don't want Russia in control of $12 trillion worth of mineral resources, because then they'll share them with China and not us. And that's what he said. So it isn't about defending democracy in Ukraine. It isn't about defending the Ukrainian people at all. It's about $12 trillion worth of resources, which happens to be Ukraine. Actually, its original name was Podonetski, which means the fertile land. And it happens to be the most fertile land on the planet. And they're bombing the living out of it, So we kind of need to look at this objectively in terms of the machine that President Eisenhower warned about in his farewell address, and say, hey, look, an unregulated military industrial congressional entertainment complex is going to be probably the single greatest threat that mankind actually faces. So war, though extremely uncomfortable and highly divisive, it does need to be brought to the table in terms of what we're doing to our environment. Now, with regards to the throwaway society topic, I mean, if I give a cast iron pan to my niece and she takes care of it, it will outlive her. So maybe we should start together as a culture, as a people, focusing on producing high quality products that can stand the test of time, and emphasizing that we should take care and value of the things that we have, rather than just buying a PFAS, code Teflon pan from IKEA for $10 and then just throwing it in the ocean every 2 years, right? As far as globalization, maybe it should be expensive to buy a handcrafted bowl from Japan because it's handcrafted and it was made in Japan. So you should pay a premium for that, right? It shouldn't cost less than a handcrafted bowl made in Canada, from your neighbor, right? How are we supposed to compete with each other? How are we supposed to actually create something that's sustainable without understanding the local values of things? Maybe the paradigm shift is more in a shift in acknowledging those simple, uncomfortable truths, and establishing a shifting in thinking that comes of a person's own volition, of a person's own cognizance, rather than dictators at the point of a gun saying, be free on my terms. These are some of the takeaways, but working in my local community and sharing seeds with my neighbors and growing food with my neighbors, it's been the most valuable thing. I collected deadwood last time I went out by the river, and I'm making a series of walking sticks for the old ladies who who live across the street, right? Because I carved one and now she's bragging, so they all want one. These are all kind of just little things that you can do locally that maybe won't even make you a buck, but it's fun, it's creative, it's the right thing to do. And maybe if we can encourage people discovering that being a part of their community and getting to know each other is a fun thing, and we can sustain each other in a more functional way, then maybe there won't be a need to burn 25,000 liters of diesel fuel to ship strawberries from Mexico, when you can just grow them at home.
Thank you so much. I feel like you lightened the load. So thank you very much, Alex. That was great. So that's perfect lead into you, Lori. He gave you a little bit of lightness. Help us bring it to the here and now and what you're seeing in your work.
Well, and to reference back to the video, my biggest take was like Alex nailed it. We need to normalize being local, supporting local. But as a human, we're not wired for this. We are wired to be a part of a bigger community. When the Ladakis were in their small community, that was normal. But when they saw the bigger community, that's what they wanted to be a part of. Because back in the day, in order to survive, we needed to be a part of that bigger community. My big takeaway from the film was we have to normalize supporting local, whether it's Alex made me a walking stick if this thing is great and I want more of them, or friends of ours are having a barbecue this weekend and everybody has to bring something for the food bank and we're filling a truck full of food for the food bank. So yes, things need to change, but it's hard because we're just not hardwired to do it.
That's so fascinating. That makes sense though, because once we see something bigger, of course I can feel that when you say that. Thank you.
I just kind of wanted to go back to what Janet was talking about a little bit with the agriculture. So in the Peace region, the small family farm doesn't exist. They're gone. All the farms up there are these massive, massive corporations. How do we bring back the small family farm? And talking about an AA program, my parents near the end of their farming life were organic farmers, not because of how they believed in it or the good of it. It was there was more profit in being an organic farmer. Is that how we bring back the small family farms? Anyway, yes, we need to support local. You need to spread it on your Facebook and your Instagram or however you get information out there, because that's the only way people are going to change.
Brilliant, Lori. Yeah.
Like the summer local markets, I'm developing a list of them. My wife and I, we go to a local market every Sunday, and that's facilitated by Bears Paw Community Association and the Lions Union. And it's all local farmers, bison, tomato, potato, whatever you need. It's a beautiful little market. And there's a whole map that you can actually get. I'll see if I can find the link for it. I'll ask my wife to send it to me. There is an opportunity to support local, and each one of these vendors has a business card. So it takes a little more planning when you want to buy your food from these different people, because you do actually have to kind of a lot of the times go to their farms. But it also becomes an adventure that way, and you can learn about how they're doing these things. And I just wanted to touch a little bit on the PFRA and their ideas in terms of incentivizing and supporting and subsidizing local farmers, especially during the drought and the depression. And I think those are all really, really good ideas. And I think our farmers, or local farmers at least, are really being under-subsidized and underfunded and overtaxed. And that's making it really difficult for them to strike it out and grow some food locally and organically.
Amazing. So yeah, I think now if we can just spend some time going around and talking about some of the action items, because now if we can talk about some of the things. So I'll just return to some of the things I like to visualize or talk about is, number one, to counter. So I'm going to say we have an identity crisis. So to counter that, then we need to look at psychological safety. So to me, this sense of belonging. So anything that we're doing to serve a sense of belonging, a sense of choice, and a sense of being good at something. I think, I think about my kids and they're going to school. I don't know if going to university is something that's going to serve them. I do think that learning how to be a regenerative farmer is certainly going to serve them. Being on the landscape and actually doing restoration work with watershed groups, that's something that I feel is really important work for people to be doing these days. So it's going to be interesting to see what that looks like for them. As you guys have said, reducing the distance between people and resources. So I love this thought, Lori, of making sure that we're promoting this local effort, because I'm picturing all the social media platforms and people going on these grand trips, and yet when you talk about psychology, a course I took a while ago was saying once you're on a trip, it doesn't matter if you're in Canmore or if you're in Timbuktu, your brain can't distinguish the two. You're already there doing something different. So even if you're going to the next community, you're doing something, the same stimulation. So let's normalize those as being really positive things rather than something far. I really like the 4 returns model. This is something that Collins brought forward for me. So those 4 returns is this return of inspiration. So again, always making sure that we're inspiring. Alex talked about jobs. Yes, we have to talk about what these jobs look like. I've been going to junior high and high schools talking about green jobs. And I've been saying this is a crisis of leadership, which means that, every job is a green job going forward. And you have an opportunity to help define what that looks like. And also realize that there's a sense of responsibility in that. Right? It's inspiration, it's a financial return, an ecological return, and a social return. So I think trying to promote activities that are local, that have those concepts in mind, I think are really helpful. We got to address the big things, which is taxes and subsidies, to make sure that we keep doing a counter lobby to the lobby that's out there to fight all of those things. So I'm definitely taking some action in that space too. And finally, some regulations. We have a big group of people that are working locally. So run by the Alberta Wilderness Association. We have a group of, I think it's 9 organizations at least, that are working together to help define what a proper regulatory body should look like in Alberta. And we're going to get very clear on that soon. And again, in a democratic way. So I think this is a big thing for me that's positive and new out of this, which when people talk about older systems like communism or collectivism, it still lacks that sense of fairness and democracy. And, this class system gets removed from it. So to me, this is the big opportunity going forward to design something new, as you said, Kristy, that really does this social democracy for real. We can sort of get past this thought of just saying that we're a democracy and rather being one. So those are my thoughts on this. I would love to hear some more. So I don't know, do I pick someone or does somebody want to unmic or unmute?
I will maybe go, and I'm going to share the link to that little 3-minute video. And if you guys want to put it in a search and look at it later and hopefully get really excited. It was actually Michael who brought this to my attention, and the website there has a organize a screening button. And so, yeah, I think Michael and I, and maybe this group or like some group can get this together. I'd originally thought maybe so this was about a month ago. I thought maybe before summer holidays, but I'm thinking September or so would be a good time, because that's when a lot of activism happens, is people are back at their things. So anyway, have a look, see if you're excited by that, and check out the book Donut Economics. I mean, it has tons of ideas, like all of these ideas that we've been speaking about are kind of built into that, but it's within a bigger model to talk about. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kristy. Let's plan this screening. Yeah, I'm glad that we have something to look forward to out of this too. Okay, who's next?
I am going to remain a squeaky wheel in our political system. Provincially, I keep waiting for some colossal shakeup that will send us to an election. Our premier will have her leadership review essentially with the Conservatives general meeting that they'll be having. I am continually aware that the federal election has the potential to change the economics of Canada in a negative, almost anti-Canadian way. I am concerned about a strong climate action plan. I am in favor of the carbon rebate that I receive as a Canadian, but I also strongly believe that we need to put a price on carbon. We need to cap emissions. We need to work towards equity in our resource management. And I am in favor of land back. I am also really intent on continuing my path of understanding how, as a settler, we move forward economically and environmentally through the lens of truth and reconciliation. I still have a lot of work to do there. I will continue to remain active even if the Liberal government is not reelected and Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre becomes our Prime Minister. I am very concerned about poverty and equity and those pillars of democracy that I see potentially going to be bulldozed for privatization. So through these things, those are my broad concerns, but acting locally, right? Those taglines, what does it mean for me? I want to get back involved and regenerate my understanding of agriculture through the lens of regenerative agriculture. And so whether that's talking to my family about practices that we could consider for the farm, those dialogues are really hard. And my dad just talking through his belief system and the barriers that I see between the political camps and the tribalism that's occurring here in Canada, and the skills that I'm learning in deep canvassing with Alberta Talks are so valuable with anybody that I speak with, whether it's my kids or my dad or my cousins that are actively farming. Understanding and collaborating, personally as well as is in my community, and hopefully co-creating change. So you guys touched on that we are social beings. We need to be part of a network. I almost prefer to be alone because I have this mistrust, and it could be in the systems that I've been educated and worked in. And so changing that feeling of openly trusting people and working together, those are the goals for me. But really trying to understand that my purchasing power can certainly create change. And so like the small things, even though I feel like a teeny grain of sand, understanding that the changes that I make will have a cascade effect. Trying to be hopeful here in that last statement from the pessimism that I showed in the other.
Yeah, Janet, there's so much that resonates with me there. The idea of, just talking with family about things. This is part of the thing that is really hard in this, is getting past our belief systems. This course that you and I took has really opened my eyes to a number of things. Alongside it, I'm taking, I know you love the donut model, Kristy, and I love it too. I also really like the future, like the degrowth model, the degrowth concept. And so to me, and what I've learned in that is there is actually a structure. Our structure makes us think that when we care for the environment and when we care for people, that we're lesser beings. That's the structure that we're currently in this capitalist system. So it is something that has been ingrained in us through the years to feel shy about talking about these things because the system tells us that we shouldn't be talking about it. We don't talk about religion and we don't talk about politics. The two things we must be talking about right now. So yeah, I'm going to stop there. And so, Alex, I'm thinking if you can lead us into the takeaways. So I'll get Lori to go next, and then you can bring us home, if you will, after you give your thoughts. So yeah, perfect.
Resonated with so much today. Well, first of all, I'm going to be diving some more into some different economics topics. I did not enjoy economics in university, but definitely we'll dive into it a bit more. So it just comes down to that. I appreciate you guys with talking about the politics of stuff, but I feel very disheartened by politicians and our political system. It's up to me to make change. No one's going to help me with this. So it really is that normalizing the local, supporting local, so that other people see it and it becomes what everybody wants to obtain. I'd love to say that the politicians are going to help us with this, but until we push for it, it's not going to happen.
So, Lori, I'm disheartened with politics too. I've reached my own state of critical mass. I'm tired of being lied to with regards to the trust issues for the same reason. When it comes to these leaders and these media institutions, I've been lied to too much. Anything that comes out of their mouths, I just see the ulterior. So I'm kind of done with politics. What I am interested in doing is getting to the root cause of these issues and trying to find a way to help galvanize and inspire people to make a difference locally using whatever skills and experiences they have, and it's not so important as to like this one person has the idea, so we're going to follow them. It's like everyone has an idea and everyone has a different skill to contribute to. The people at the podium are always saying like, oh, this is a threat to our democracy. This populism is a threat to our democracy. Populism is a democracy. Populism is what the people want, from grassroots to the federal government. And I think they're grossly misinterpreting that. So that's about all I'm going to say about politics. I'm a construction worker. You need me to build you a garden box or make you a walking stick, I can do that, But if you need me to develop a vaccine, I'm hopeless. Someone else is going to be able to change the oil. Someone else is going to be able to fix the plumbing. Someone else is going to be able to help me in horticulture and understanding my environment. Someone else is going to help me to understand the nature of my environment and how it's balanced in the history, the 7,000-year history that goes. I think that's the single most important thing an individual can do. Justin Trudeau is not losing a minute of sleep over us. He doesn't even know who we are, and he doesn't care. So why are we entrusting him to fix the problem? And from a psychological standpoint, why are we still so naive as a populace to think that we can elect one human being, and because we elected that one human being, they're going to fix all the problems and we don't have to do anything ourselves? That's delusional. What we can do in our individual lives is just kind of make a few choices here that may be better and more functional and less wasteful, and then just hit repeat, right? And then encourage other people to do the same thing. And I guarantee you, through just curiosity, open-mindedness, learning, and willingness, like we can change this from the ground up, And it may take a generation, but the generation's going to pass anyways. So when are we going to get started? And those are kind of my takeaways.
Alex, that was wicked. So I'm just going to say, so what Alex and I are doing right now, based on this course, Janet, and also our schedule of learning, we're having just conversations with what comes up. So with our network and everything, but we're doing it in the context of this course that we took to structure conversations so that we can have difficult conversations like this, heavy conversations like this, hence the gravity well, and be able to move past and make decisions. So we're doing a halftime report, if you will, that'll come out after this round. Next week is the last one of this round. So next week we're meeting with Wissam, who's head of Justice for Palestine in Calgary. So I'm really excited to chat with him. I've been following him since November. So and the Watermelon Foundation is joining us too. So that's next week. And then after that, like I said, will be this halftime report, which we're using this learning, this knowledge around collective power and dispersing power. Like the one thing, Alex is really good. So if anybody isn't aware, he's good at giving me a different perspective. And so, when I talk about power, he goes, because he doesn't want that political power, right? That thought of like trying to build my personal power. And it's not, it's about dispersive power. How do we help the masses feel empowered? So I think that's the big learning that I've had, and I'm excited to help us together. So please know that Alex and I, and actually we have somebody else helping us now, Andy Kubrin, which some of you might know. So Andy's helping us move to the next level, if you will. So we're really excited about that too. So that's what's new with us. So if we can just go around and let everybody offer, I think even if you don't want to say what your work is or whatever, at least offer, I think, like especially you and Janet and Kristy, if you can say things that you are volunteering with, I think it would be helpful for people to understand what action looks like. For me, it's getting involved in every group that I support. I'm trying to support them in every way I possibly can. And I know you guys are doing the same. So I think if you could just articulate some of that would be helpful for people. So I'll stop there. Maybe we'll go in reverse order. So Lori, if you wouldn't mind just reminding everybody about your business and anything else you wanted to add.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. So yeah, the company I've started is a money maker mindset. You can check out my website. I'm on Instagram, and my whole goal is to educate people on finances. Um, I was always told I have a knack for explaining things so that everybody can understand. And so now I'm just trying to get the information out there. I work with clients to help them figure out their unconscious biases and help make better decisions going forward. And as for volunteer stuff, I got to do a shout out. I am very active with service dogs. I've raised several service dog puppies, one of which is passed out at my feet right now. So if you're looking for a group to support, in Calgary, Aspen Service Dogs is great. In Edmonton, it's Dogs with Wings is the one I supported. It's the most fulfilling volunteer job I've ever had. So check it out if you're interested.
Awesome, Lori. Okay, I'll go reverse. So Janet, you're next, please.
Thank you. I mentioned Alberta Talks, and I started volunteering with Alberta Talks to learn about the art of changing hearts and minds through compassionate, empathetic, non-judgmental conversation. My concern came out of the disinformation, propaganda, and hate that I was picking up on. I also alluded to the difficulties I have in my own family to have these conversations rather than breaking it into arguments and the great debate, and I have all my data and I am right and they have their data and they are right, and we were just not able to talk about these difficult issues at all. After doing the deep canvas, I was afforded the ability to work part-time for Alberta Talks. I am also looking for new opportunities as my kids are no longer in school. I was a volunteer at their school for about 10 years in their naturalization area. I loved working with kids, talking about native plants, native species, composting, food waste, pollinators. I want to do that type of work. So Jenny, you're in schools. Maybe you take me along sometime on your field trips. Please, I'm looking to help you in any way and capacity that I'm so excited about this Gravity Well project that you are so successful and bringing us together in community. So thank you for that. I volunteer politically. I threw my name into the round for a by-election in my community, and I sit on a Liberal electoral district association. And Alex, I sat with the Prime Minister last week in Calgary. He does care about us. He is hearing us. I was one of the few people wearing a respirator mask. I still live my life very COVID cautiously. Save it for another day, but I will be that squeaky wheel. I will continue to write letters and that kind of thing. But that's how I'm using all of my angst and energy in a productive manner rather than being home alone. And it's working. I've worked through a lot of grief with people that in this community, and I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Amazing. I see we lost Kristy. She sent in a private note that she had to take off. Thank you so much, guys. Alex, did you have any closing thoughts before we leave? Thank you.
I would just like to say that, Janet, I have no issue with people volunteering politically. I find it's a particularly toxic environment. And as you were saying, it's like everyone's got their data and they're not willing to have a conversation. I myself also met the Prime Minister and shook his hand and had a beer with him. His heart seems to be in the right place. I just maybe think that in some cases he's not getting the best advice. Or, when he asks questions, he's surrounded by yes men rather than people who are going to push back a little bit. He gets information as a federal leader that we're not privy to, and he's not privy to divulge. So that's not an easy position for anyone to put themselves in. And I acknowledge that. Politics for me seems to be these days 70 plus elections going on federally around the world. I'm not interested in fighting people. My fighting days are over. That's a younger man's game. I'm more interested in people, and I'm willing to speak with any politician across the aisle. if they're willing to. I'm not a gotcha question type person. I'm just interested in getting to the bottom of things so that we can work together to find solutions. So I really appreciate your work, and Lori as well. I very much appreciate your work. Financial psychological health is an under-discussed issue, and I think it's probably one of the most important issues going forward, especially considering capital gains taxes, increases in property taxes, the carbon tax, and how it's affecting the cost of everything, and how people are actually stretched to the limit, and it's affecting their relationships and their ability to provide for their families and children. So I think all these initiatives that Jenny and Janet and Lori and myself are trying to at least open the discussion to are extremely important, and there's no better time than to get started.
Lovely. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Lori, like you said, we're really appreciative for you, especially stretching a little bit here. Really appreciate that. And yeah, let's make sure that we get out, like you said, let's talk locally, but also let's talk about those things. Like Alex said, it's really helpful to, in simple terms, help people understand how their finances are really being impacted. So if you have anything like that we can help promote and share information for people, yeah, please point that for us when we do the wrap up blog for this. So thank you both. We've gone a little bit over time, but thank you so much. And Janet, I am so grateful for your allyship. I know what you're right there with me, and I'm so excited. Yes, I'm going to talk to Kip about getting you involved in that program too. I also haven't put Colin's name forward. It just didn't come to me yet either. So both of you, I'll put your names forward for that, and we'll get talking to some kids more. It's really nice to be in the classroom, and got a few questions, so that's a good thing. So yeah, absolutely. Have a great evening. Thank you.